Good day and welcome to the WANA webinar series. As you will notice, all participants have been muted. To enable multi-language closed captioning, click on the CC icon located in the bottom left of your WebEx window. We have added a few notes within the chat window to enhance your WebEx experience, such as changing your closed captioning language, how to submit a question, and how to reach to us for technical support. Select the chat icon on the bottom right of your screen to review these features and to engage with fellow members on today's topics. We welcome questions throughout today's event through the Q&A panel and will answer these after presentations have concluded. Thank you all for joining, and please welcome Ruth Osterman from Genesis Club.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Spring WANA webinar. Just a reminder that all of the webinars that we've held are available on YouTube on the WANA webinar channel to use as trainings, refreshers, and a way to get new ideas for your club. Today's webinar will be available in a week or two. It's great seeing all the clubs putting your name in the polling. It's good to see who's here, so keep doing that. And again, hello. Clubhouses are beautiful, intentional communities where people with serious mental illness run the organization and regain strengths, talents, and abilities. But we're also part of our larger community, the city or town where we're located. And we have a lot to offer the greater community as well. We often think of building partnerships with employers, educational institutions, fitness clubs, etc., as meeting the needs of our members. But a true partnership benefits both the clubhouse and the community organization we partner with. Mosaic Clubhouse in London learned that as they were struggling for their mere existence as government funding dried up. Since then, they continue to develop and sustain partnerships with key community organizations that serve to strengthen and grow the clubhouse, as well as identify Mosaic as essential in their community. Chris Thomas, the director of Mosaic Clubhouse, is going to lead this conversation. And as Nikki mentioned, please put questions you have in the Q&A window throughout the webinar. We're all seeking to build effective community partnerships, and Chris and his team have great experience and insight to help us do that effectively. So Chris, I'm going to turn that over to you to introduce the panel.
Thank you, Ruth, and hello everyone. It's really good to be here to be talking about the really important, we think, topic of partnerships. I'm joined today by one of our members, Joe, who will be speaking later about some of her experiences, and also by, I'm delighted to say, one of our community partners, Lee, who is going to talk a bit about the benefits for his organisation of partnering with the Clubhouse. So, as Ruth was getting at in her introduction there, it's key to think about why we're doing this. Why bother? What are the things we've got to think through before we start engaging in partnerships? There's benefits for members if you're talking about employment, if you're talking about education, if you're talking about well-being, but you've got to think about what's in it for the community as a whole, what's in it for the organisation that you want to partner with, and we'll be exploring some of those things today as we go through the key points of the presentation. Here at Mosaic in London, we're a training base, and we have a lot of colleagues come to us, and they often choose to come to us because we've got a bit of a reputation for quite interesting, sometimes quite innovative community partnerships, and want to ask us about how to do that. What is it about getting them going? And people have often got a clear idea when they start about things they need for their members, but haven't done that bit about thinking through what they can offer. Because the Clubhouse, really rich resource for a number of organisations in the community. And we're lucky at Mosaic now, we've got a range of really interesting dynamic partnerships. So we've got a number of, as I'm sure you all have, employment partners with whom we do TEPs. We've got education providers who come into the Clubhouse to do classes and who we send out to local local campuses, and a range of health and wellbeing partnerships as well, which we've developed over recent years. And we can talk more about some of those later. So we're going to talk about how to get partners involved and how to build and sustain some of those partners. But it's good, I think, to start with thinking about things from the partner's point of view. What's in it for them? What do you need to get across to a partner when you start that conversation? So I'm going to bring in Lee now. Lee is one of our local partners. And Lee, could you introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your organisation and how you got involved with Mosaic?
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, Chris. Excuse me. My name is Lee Roach. I'm a head occupational therapist in Lambeth, southeast London, in the UK, and I work for the South London and Maudsley NHS Trust, which is part of the National Health Service. And I joined the Lambeth team about in 2018. And where I work in Brixton, there was a TEP post, or is a TEP post still, on the reception. And that employs 3 people across the week. And I thought it was just like a really great idea, really, to support people back into paid employment. And the conversations I've had with the reception staff over the years have made me an advocate for TEPs within my organisation.
Thanks. That's really good to know. So, what specifically about the needs of South London and Maudsley? What is it that your needs are? What needs of yours are filled by working with us in the clubhouse?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, just to give you some context, there are lots of vacancies in the National Health Service organisation I work for, and that's not just our organisation. It's a national situation across the National Health Service with all the organisations. We employ about 5,000 people, give or take, and currently our levels of vacancies run between 5 and 20% for different areas of our workforce. So our workforce is made up of lots of different areas, not just kind of medical and allied health professions, but other areas like finance and estates, etc. But we have a challenge to fill all these vacancies. So we're reliant on a lot of temporary staffing, and those staff can be very unfamiliar with the environment, with working in the organisation, with working with people. They're obviously very temporary because they're temporary staff, and they're of different calibre. So some people are very experienced and very, very capable, and other people are not so much. And we have efficiencies that we need to make, and therefore we have recruitment targets, and TEPs provide us with an opportunity to reach out to a group of people who we know are underemployed. So why continue to do the same things and try and fish from the same pool all the time when there's a group of people that need paid employment, and we're an organisation that needs employees.
Brilliant. So, how overall does working with Mosaic help meet the aims of your service?
Yeah, I think that the TEPs are a way of meeting the needs of our service users that want paid employment as well, wanting experience and an opportunity to build confidence. There's a potential for a career pathway into all those areas I mentioned, with apprenticeship schemes that we have now within the National Health Service. And our own records show that unemployment for people using our service can be as high as 95% for those with a psychosis diagnosis. So, as I said before, we've got a variety of vacancies in administration, estates and facilities, training, finance and accounts, human resources, as well as the professions related to medicine. So I think we can appeal to a kind of wide range of people with a wide range of interests. And as a head of profession, I supervise clinicians who are searching for opportunities for people that they want to they're working with, who want to get back into paid employment and want support to get back into work, which Mosaic provides. And knowing that TEPs are available is supporting those people and supporting my staff as well to connect them up and connect them in.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So beyond that, what other benefits might there be?
So I think, we're all aware that people living with a diagnosis of a mental health issue are reluctant to disclose that to employers, for fear of not being employed, being discriminated against. It's a key benefit, I think, working alongside people with mental health issues. The workforce becomes more aware of the impact of that stigma. So we've all got a role to play in challenging stigma around mental health issues. When our workplaces apparently exclude people with mental health issues, although we know they don't, it increases the stigma. So the benefits for our service users and patients are that they are in contact with people who are through Mosaic are disclosing that they have a mental health issue, and this actually supports our own staff who are living with their mental health issues, but not actually disclosing that you can get access and support, and that the organisation will support people with mental health problems.
That's great. Thank you, Lee. I'm sure there'll be some more questions for you later. We'll come back.
Thanks, Chris.
Bring you in afterwards. And before I go on to talk to Jo about some of her experiences, I think it'd be good to expand a bit on some of the points that Ruth made in the introduction there about why Mosaic got into the kind of spirit of partnership working and how we got there in the first place, really. The important thing was that we had to do it to survive. Our history is, if you go back about 10 years, we were seen as very inward looking, very closed organisation that didn't really engage with the community. And our local funders were looking at us and saying, well, what's the point of the clubhouse? What do you actually do? What do you actually contribute? And they gave us a bit of an ultimatum. They said, well, if you can look at providing some other services, in our case, if you can look at providing an information service for people with mental illness beyond the clubhouse, and if you can provide an evening sanctuary crisis support service, again, for some people that may or may not be part of the clubhouse already, then we don't think we can support you anymore. They also offered us a lovely new building, which we're still in today. But that was on condition that we had to let other organisations in and allow other organisations that are part of the local mental health landscape, as it were, come into the building. And that was a bit of a challenge to the standards, a bit of a challenge to the work of the day, but it was existential. If we said no, we either wouldn't be a clubhouse anymore or we wouldn't exist at all. So the decision that was made at the time was to say yes, and then worry about the standards and worry about the work order day later. It was a big risk, but it did pay off. And what that got us into was recognizing that actually, if we do open our doors and we do allow people in a bit, everyone wins. Hence the title of this webinar. We've got a whole range of really exciting unit work for people to do in terms of engaging with the outside organisations, providing publicity for members about what's going on. And we've got a much richer range of services and opportunities that we can offer our members. But it doesn't mean we continue to say yes to everything all the time. We have to be measured about what we do and how we do it, as any organisation, any clubhouse does. And the beginning and end of it still has to be, what do members need? What are we providing as a clubhouse, which could do better? We could do better with the support of partners. So I want to bring in Jo now. Jo's one of our members. who's been with us for a few years. And Jo, you've benefited from a variety of partnerships that we've got at Mosaic. Can you tell us a bit about what you've been doing?
Okay, thank you, Chris, for inviting me. To start off, I'd like to just talk a little bit about my journey. When I first joined Mosaic Clubhouse, my confidence was on the ground. I was completely crushed. I found it a challenge to even get in through the door of the clubhouse, let alone to think about doing anything. But one of the staff members, which our clubhouse calls engagement workers, was absolutely fantastic. And one of the first things Luna did was sit down with me and set out some goals, which she called TATs, Tiny Achievable Targets. And one of the things I always struggled with was mathematics. I have dyscalculia. It's like dyslexia, but with numbers. And maths and I never liked each other. Throughout all my school days, I really struggled with maths and I had no confidence in my abilities. So the clubhouse was running a maths class and I joined it because it was a safe environment. I was with other members. I felt supported by my engagement worker, by the other staff and by the other members. And my grade went from an E plus D minus, so a fail or a scraping the pass, to an A. And it was the first time in my life I got an A in exams in maths. And I was thrilled, especially as it happened during lockdown. And again, it was Luna, it was the staff ringing, checking in, giving me the weekly encouragement, telling me that I could do it. So there was that. And then the other is, although I usually work in the business and admin unit, the cafe and garden unit were looking for members to take part in a food hygiene course. And I figured, why not? I mean, it will allow me to work in the cafe and garden unit in the kitchen if necessary. And what that gave me was also the confidence to use public transport. Because of my mental health, getting on a crowded public transport on a bus or on the underground or whatever it was I had to travel, I found that terrifying. So the support was that I'd go to the clubhouse, they'd walk me to the bus stop and I'd get on the bus by myself. And then I had somebody meet me at the bus stop and walk me back to the clubhouse for the first day. And then I did it all by myself afterwards. And I got my level 2 in food hygiene and I never missed a class. Once lockdown happened and I became very isolated, things started to change. I had a pandemic baby and I just felt that there was this huge life-changing event going on and my mental health was just going to completely shatter again. But there was the constant weekly reach out from the clubhouse. There was the fact that the unit meeting had become online through Zoom. We were still working together. We were still doing the work order day. And the support was absolutely fantastic. And Luna, again, I mean, the engagement workers in Mosaic are fantastic. They're second to none. Again, she changed my goals to what I could do, and she showed me where I could do courses online, free of charge, and I succeeded in getting a level 2 in dementia care and a level 2 in end-of-life care, which, while not a partnership with the clubhouse, was, you know, Luna looking and seeing what was available. And after lockdown and everything lifted, there was a weight gain. And again, my confidence shattered. And there was the healthy living class through the NHS, which wasn't weight loss, it wasn't diets, it wasn't, you know, it was healthy, looking at the full person and what to change and what to maintain. And I went there. I would never have gone if it had been offered anywhere else. I was through Mosaic because it was safe, it was supportive, and I've lost 14 pounds or a stone. I feel fantastic, and my confidence is back, because that's the one thing that all of this has given me is sort of more confidence to do things like this webinar.
Yeah, that's great to hear, Jo. Thank you. And back on the heels of your success with the Healthy Living class, we are going to restart the Mosaic jogging group, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, we've got a deal on that one. Excellent.
We have got a deal on that. Yes, I promise.
So to sum up then, Jo, is that from a member's point of view, what are the key points that make partnerships work?
Well, the key point is actually the rest of the staff. It's no good that the director makes these relationships if the staff aren't on board, or if they're just using as a box ticking exercise, tick, 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 done. Because if the members don't benefit, if the members aren't engaged, if that's not what the members want, it's all going to fall flat. It's going a little bit beyond maybe their own unit. If it's something for predominantly, the cafe or business or education, and they just offer it to the whole clubhouse, because there might be a person like me who would love to do it, but doesn't have the confidence to say, I'd like to sign up, please. And then to be offered it is like, yes, I'll take it. So it's absolutely wonderful to have, the staff and the members doing the reach out, the members making the posters, the members ringing up. During the Healthy Living, it was a phone call. Jo, are you coming in? And if I said no, next thing I knew, the staff member was ringing me saying, what's wrong? Why are we, what's going on today? Let's have a look, have a chat. Would you like to come in? So it was getting me back so that I would keep coming was always.
Yeah, thank you. That's a really good example, Jo. And thanks for bringing that up, because that brings us on to the point about how partnership working can really help develop that really key, urgent, important, necessary unit work. None of this would happen, like with anything at Clubhouse. Of course, none of things would happen without members and all their hard work around it. A good example is our monthly walk-in health checks. There's one going off just down the corridor at the moment here at Mosaic, where they're sessions over lunchtime, run by a local surgery. There's a nurse and a care coordinator, and members can just drop in and talk about their health concerns. Because for all the reasons that you described, Jo, it's seen as a safe environment. It's not clinical. It's somewhere where people are going to feel supported. But none of that would happen without members needing to create posters, create publicity, put reminders in our members' newsletter, helping the partners on the day. We've got members going around with clipboards, organising people's appointments. And then at the end of the day, when we've got all the list of members that attended, of course, someone needs to add that to our database and systems. And that's another kind of morning's work for somebody in business and admin unit tomorrow morning. So partnership working benefits members. It provides something which is useful for the community as a whole, and it creates us even more urgent unit work to enhance our work order day.
Exactly. But Chris, I've got a question for you, which is, you're the director, and everything stops with you. We're up for accreditation, and we are looking into the standards quite seriously at the moment, because we don't want to lose our accreditation. We really, really don't. And all this partnership, all this working together, how do you manage to have a happy marriage between the standards and the partnerships?
Yeah, that is a really good point, really good question, because we've got to keep that at the front of our minds all the time. And it's something which troubles a lot of clubhouses that come to us for training and ask us about this stuff too. Because we think a lot of clubhouses get stuck, especially on Standard 13. And Standard 13 is that one which has got that clause in it about the clubhouse being impermeable to other services, which is a bit of a strong word, but you need to unpick what that really means. Our take on that is that means that it's not somewhere which is clinical. It's not somewhere where people can come for their sort of therapy and other sort of clinical services. And so, you know, it's not seen as an extension to a hospital or other kind of community-based clinic. It's its own organisation in its own right. But then if you turn it on its head and think, okay, what are the rest of the standards telling us to do? And how can partnership working help deliver those standards? The obvious ones, the big section of the standards all about employment, where we've got to have a range of TEPs which got to be run to certain standards. We couldn't do that without partnerships. There's a key standard there about education. We can do quite a lot in-house, and we do quite a lot in-house, and members provide quite a lot of stuff, and staff do too. But having community education partners only enhances our work under that standard. And then there's all of the health and well-being and physical health benefits of a whole range of partnerships, which we've discussed. We've discussed here as well. So I think you need to think beyond Standard 13. Think about what it can do rather than what it can't.
So how is it done? And without interrupting the work order day?
Oh, without interrupting the work order day. Yeah, that is another really good point. What we've done at Mosaic is tried to, unless it is sort of education and employment related, in which case I think it's comfortable about it being part of the work order day. For the health and wellbeing partnerships, like the walk-in clinic that we've got today, it's done once a month, but it happens to be today. Deliberately put that in the middle of the day, around lunchtime, so that it doesn't interfere. It kind of stops at 1:30. We have our unit meetings, one of our main unit meetings every day at 1:30. It doesn't interfere with that. It doesn't get in the way. But it also does depend, I think, on the strength of your work order day. If it's something that you're developing, if you're quite a new clubhouse, then it might be best to keep some of this work either end of the day. But you could see yourself as a modern working organisation, where if people need to take a break and go for a walk or go for a jog or spend some time looking after their well-being during the working day, then that's fine too. But don't do that before you're confident about getting everything else right in the work order day. I would say so. To kind of sum up, as we're kind of coming to the end of our main time here in the webinar, you've got to think about what's in your plan. What do you want to achieve as a clubhouse over the next year, over the next 2 years, 3 years? What is it that's come up in unit meetings? What are members saying about what they need? What's coming up in house meetings? What's coming up in policy meetings? What work do you want to do but you can't necessarily do on your own? Get some answer to those kind of questions, and you can start to think about making choices about what kind of partners you want, where you need to go and start looking. So you've got an idea of what's missing. Then you can think, okay, we need more TEPs, say, and we need to look for employers that have got vacancies. Then we're going to them with something they need. And if you could put yourself in the shoes of partners and think about the benefits from them, then you're halfway there in terms of developing that conversation. There's nothing stopping you then from picking up the phone or dropping an email and getting things going. So hopefully we've, between us, illustrated that partners benefit the clubhouse, benefit members primarily, of course, but also benefit organisations that we can partner with. We've got a really strong offer to other organisations in the community as clubhouses. We'll end it there. I'll hand back over to Ruth, and hopefully there'll be some questions. Thank you.
Great, thanks. And Lee's come back in. So I think Jessica or Nikki, you're going to start with some questions for us?
Absolutely, thank you. For those that have questions that you would like to ask, please feel free to submit your questions in the Q&A panel located in the bottom right-hand side of your WebEx screen. So Ruth, I'll kick us off with our first question. How do you make first contact with an organization that you think could be a good community partner for a clubhouse?
I think that's the big question. And Chris, you kind of alluded to, understand what they need, but if you could give a specific, that'd be helpful. And also maybe Lee, you could follow up from your perspective about, I know that you inherited the TE program, but what did Mosaic say that got you excited about partnering with them? So Chris, why don't you start?
Yeah, I think that is a really good point. That's where people kind of get stuck about, what do we actually do? How do we start this thing? And a good starting point is always thinking about who who in the broadest sort of sense. So there could be members that have got connections with an organisation. Maybe they've got a member of the family who works there, or know someone involved, and using the board as well. That's a kind of key resource for the clubhouse, or it should be, about who's got connections, who knows people, who can sort of give us an introduction if we need one, rather than just be a kind of cold caller or cold emailer. It's about doing that research internally and finding out what connections you've got. That's always surprises me. And the thing that never ceases to amaze me is how much intelligence about the local community your membership have got. They are your kind of eyes and ears. They use services, they use local resources, and know stuff. No more stuff than staff on the board do. So make use of those resources and find out who you know and who's got connections.
Yeah, to answer your question, Ruth, I think it's being able to fill vacancies. We've got vacancies, and actually provide a resource for my clinicians. So they've got people who are looking for work, paid employment. They're working with people who are wanting to build their confidence. They're maybe not ready to go into a permanent full-time job, but if I can expand the number of TEPs within my organisation, then that's more resource for my clinicians. It's more of more benefit to the service users who are using our services. And the way I can sell that within the organisation is to say, look, well, we don't lose with this, because if you're worried that somebody with a mental health problem is not going to turn up to work, well, I know from experience that's not the case. People have a very good work ethic and commitment to the organisation. But the other thing is that staff from Mosaic will step in if those people don't turn up. So the argument, before it even comes up, we've got the challenge for it. So for those reasons, I think it's really we are actually expanding the number of TEPs that we've got within the organisation with Chris's help and colleagues.
I think that's really helpful. I mean, you're thinking, I got to fill these vacancies. So what's prescient is we got people who'll show up, and when they don't, we've got people who are going to cover for them, and we've got talented people across all your vacancies. So that's what the employer's looking to hear. Joe, do you have anything to add?
No, I'm just going to echo, really. It is, the members who will come up with amazing solutions to problems you didn't even know you had. The unit meeting, the policy meetings, communications work. We have a brilliant communications committee that meets, and the ideas that people bounce off. I mean, some might be, completely out of left field, but people will come up with absolute, brilliant solutions. They know other organizations that are looking for people. There's I've myself have benefited, with another charity through Mosaic. I ended up actually volunteering there, and I was volunteer of the year, which again, I never thought in a million years after my mental breakdown that I would ever be able to put myself back. I was working with adult learners. I was helping people get back into employment. It was absolutely amazing. And, it would never have happened if somebody hadn't just said at a meeting, what about this place? They're looking for volunteers. It's not paid employment, it's not TEP, but they're looking for people.
Yeah.
Why don't we put some members forward?
Next question.
Thank you. Can you give some examples of the type of unit work that can be created through establishment of community partnerships?
Hey, Chris, why don't you start, and then Joe, you can follow up. I can see you both thinking.
Yeah. I mean, I've touched on some of those things. I mean, if it's sort of endless examples, really depending on what it was. I mean, if it's a new TEP, say, we've got our big sort of TEP board in reception when people come in with a list of current vacancies. That would need to be updated. We'd need someone to write something about it for the members' newsletter, which comes out every fortnight, and publicise it through that. If it was a new class that was being put on by a provider, again, there'd be lots of sort of publicity and promotion that would needed to be done. There'd be all of the unit work around recording and adding to the database and making sure we've got all those systems in place. And there's if partners come in, there's help with the logistics on the day. I mean, we've got our kind of cafe and gardens unit here, and if people come in and put on classes and use quite a lot of space, they might be here all day. There's refreshments and extra logistics and service to be done as well. I'm sure I've missed stuff, Joe, haven't I?
Well, I'm just thinking, there's from the setup, you've got to do the sign-up sheets just to get, how many people are thinking about it, and we might have more. So is it going to be, limited to a certain number of members? So there's that to be considered. Then there is the reach out, where we ring members and remind them. There is the internal event form that has to be filled out. Then that's put onto the database. There's, the post-mortem that's done. Was it what the members wanted? Did it meet the needs? Did it reach the goal that was set? Where did it go wrong? Why didn't, or how did it go right? Those things all have to be done. And it's also side-by-side working, because some of it requires, paid staff because of the level of the level they have to get it onto the database and what data will be available. A member wouldn't be able to do that for obvious reasons. So it's side-by-side working, and there's also the fun bits like making a poster to put up. I mean, even something as small as what Chris mentioned about the jogging, that the poster still has to be made. It has to go into our newsletter. It has to, and also once members start to enjoy it, they chat about it, and then you get more. So, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And also it can be a case of, during our work order day, sometimes if it's a class or whatever, we have to think about the logistics. Like if we're using one of the bigger rooms, which is usually our education and employment unit, they have to come into the B&A unit to work because that room is now being used for the class. So that can also be really interesting because we can have a joint unit meeting, which also gives members an insight into what another unit does regarding the work order day. And some people have actually started to move more around the clubhouse. They're not, this is my unit and this is where I work all day, every day. They're starting to become much more fluid around the clubhouse, popping up everywhere.
That's a nice comprehensive overview of, I can think about at my club a lot of that work, but I didn't put it in necessarily that box. That's so helpful.
So the next question we have is for Lee and for others to chime in as well. How do you get others at your organization excited about and committed to the partnership with Mosaic Clubhouse?
Good news stories. So working within the health service at the moment, good news stories are quite thin on the ground. So people moving on from Mosaic TEPs into paid employment, which does happen from where we work, that's a really good news story for us. So people then ask further questions about, well, what is a TEP? Can you explain? Is there somebody to contact? And things just flow out of that. We had some vacancies in our administration posts, and we've managed to turn those into TEPs, and it took some discussion and some meetings with people, but I think there was an understanding that this would meet the objective of filling vacancies and having people who were going to be with us for a little while at least, and secondly that we would have potentially people who could then take up the positions permanently, and fill other vacancies. So I guess that's my experience of getting people excited about it. Good news stories.
Great.
Thank you. And Lee, to add off of that, how has partnering with organizations changed Mosaic's reputation as being internally focused? Are you more well known?
Well, I would say yes. I think our reputation has definitely improved over the years. I mean, there's some of our sort of, local managers and commissioners from the local health service and our local borough council here in Lambeth who supported us, who can remember, what they describe as the bad old days of how, getting anything out of Mosaic was like getting blood out of a stone, and kind of really uncooperative, and tales of people saying, oh no, we can't do that because it's our standards say we can only do this, and I'm not engaging in conversations. But I went to present yesterday to managers to feedback on some money that we got to develop our health and wellbeing partnerships, and they're sort of describing Mosaic now as kind of a really kind of go-to example of how to build in loads of health benefits into a non-clinical operation, and so I think it definitely has improved our profile. I mean, a lot of people still, in the general public don't necessarily know about us, but we are now much more embedded as part of the mental health landscape, as it were, in our part of London. People that work in mental health in this part of London know who we are and what we do, I think, more than they used to. And I think a lot of that is because of our outward focus. I'd like to think so.
Yeah, can I just jump in and say that for most new staff in Lambeth that we employ, Mosaic is part of their induction, so they'll go along for a visit. Mosaic provides an information service for service users, for people with mental health problems, and that's that's also really useful for us to be able to access and be able to direct people and signpost people to.
And the other thing is, you see the posters for Mosaic in doctors' offices. I've looked, and there it is up on the wall. If you're having problems, here it is. Here's the evening sanctuary. Here's the information hub. Here's the clubhouse itself. And I mean, it's. I would say yes, we are pretty well known, and also within other organizations as well. It's like, oh yes, you came from Mosaic Clubhouse, so therefore we expect that you are able to do X, Y, and Z.
That's so great. I would infer from all that too, then your referrals must have gone up, because now people are seeing this as a place with more opportunities than prior to the community partnerships. Is that true?
Yeah, there's a steady stream of referrals. Something that we talk about in sort of house meetings every day, trying to manage them and make sure people are coming in as quickly as possible. And it's sort of created a load of new work as well around thinking, what is the experience of new members? How are we focusing on their kind of, I don't like the expression much, but how we're focusing on their onboarding into the clubhouse, and what's their experience is a constant challenge. Another interesting point about referrals is that someone's picked up one of our main funders recently, was that our membership numbers rocketed during lockdown, during the height of the pandemic, because a lot of other services were doing nothing, were completely shut. And at least we took on the Clubhouse International mantra saying the building's closed, but the community's open, and we still took referrals. And that number's gone down now because it was perhaps artificially high. But I guess that that is an example of how our sort of reputation's been enhanced by being more outward focused, I think.
Definitely. Jessica, we have another?
We do, Ruth. Thank you. Have you developed any education partnerships for furthering education?
Yes, we've got, if you like, a sort of a pet provider locally. We work with a London-based further education college called Maudsley College, who've got a number of physical sites. They've got a number of campuses in our part of London, but they also see us as a reliable partner because they exist by getting people signed up to their courses, and unless people sign up to their courses, they don't get government money to carry on doing what they're doing. And so they really like partnering with us because we can talk to them about exactly what we need, exactly what our members tell us they want. One sort of quite popular sort of career pathway for members is going into customer-facing roles like retail and so on. And so we've partnered with them recently to deliver a customer service course. So the tutors come into the clubhouse once a week over a period of about 10 weeks, and members can sign up to do this sort of customer service course, and that's sort of developed into a really good partnerships. I mean, if there is anything similar where you are, any sort of colleges that can offer sometimes vocational, sometimes not, but those kind of courses that help people develop the skills, not necessarily detailed job specific, because that's not what we're about, but skills that are going to help people in a real work kind of environment, then it's highly recommend that you get in touch, because chances are they'd really love to hear from an organisation like a Clubhouse, which has got a lot of people that are keen to learn. And
I mean, it was Morley College where I did my maths. That was true, Morley College. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. But they also, one of the things, not just maths, it's also the basics. It's like English, and English as a second language sometimes is done as well, because sometimes you have to take a step back to move forward. So sometimes it's covering the basics, like getting somebody proficient in English or in maths or whatever, and then they can go on and do the customer service roles or receptionist or bookkeeping or whatever it is. That, you know, Morley College has so many courses that I think at times we're a little bit spoiled for choice.
The final question today will be, what other partnerships do you wish to develop in the future?
Oh, that's a really good question. And I'm going to kind of cop out and say it depends. I think one of my jobs, and along with other managers of the clubhouse, is to keep listening to what members are telling us, keep an ear out for what's going on locally, thinking about what are the needs of the economy in the area, what skills are going to be needed, and what can we think about in terms of, you know, partnering to make that happen. I mean, one thing I would really love to do is get more engaged with the kind of digital economy. We started to look at courses around and opportunities to partner with people around coding and those kind of skills, which are going to be so important to the economy. And we know that locally here in Lambeth, the local authorities are really keen on bringing in more of those kind of industries. So I'm minded to be on the lookout for those kind of things. But the short answer definitely is, you know, it's got to be led by what members need, and you know, my job is to be open to those ideas.
I think that's going to be another roving reporter question. This is one of the ways we get our information. It's a very simple and very fun way. In our newsletter, there is a person who walks around the clubhouse with a clipboard and pen and asks a question of all members. And, you know, sometimes it is clubhouse related, like, what courses would you like to see run at Mosaic? And then, you know, if we get the same answer a few times, it might be something that we can discuss further at unit or policy meetings.
Before we wrap up, I wanted to follow up. Yesterday, we were talking a bit about partnering with organizations, refugee organizations, or in the United States, you know, organizations from diverse communities, marginalized communities that clubhouses maybe haven't partnered with. Is that a future goal? And I think, Chris, you're thinking about that a little bit, right?
Yeah, I mean, we were asked a few months back if we could offer some space to help out with supporting refugees coming over from Ukraine, who sort of needed some space, needed some sort of quieter rooms to do things like English lessons, and we kind of just sort of jumped at the chance that we've got a lovely resource here, a great big building, and there's people coming into the area that need to help to kind of settle into the country. It's kind of almost like our community sort of duty, if you like, to help and be of use. And so that's something I would always recommend to other clubhouses. We were talking to colleagues a while ago who had a similar problem in a different request in a different country, and again, we're kind of unsure about whether they should open the doors of a clubhouse to help those sort of marginalised and excluded groups. And to me, the short answer is yes. It's a good example of how the clubhouse is a resource which can be really useful for the community. Yeah, do it.
So that'll be something to look at in future development, and how you guys set the stage for that.
And another thing is, after the work order day, one of the people who use the clubhouse or use the building are the young carers. So children and young adults who are, you know, caring for a parent or someone who is very ill, and they might feel very isolated. They might be missing out on schooling or whatever because, you know, they have to take on this additional burden or role. And, you know, they have a place where they can come, where they can talk, where there's tea, coffee, hot drink, whatever. And, it's after the work order day, so it doesn't impact on the unit work or anything, but it gives them a place where they are, they know they can come.
Fantastic. Well, Lee and Joe and Chris, I want to thank you for the conversation today. I think you gave me certainly, and hopefully people looking in, a lot of ideas about effective community partnerships, not just employers, but of course employers are key. So thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
The invitation, yeah, thank you.
Thank you to all of our presenters today. If we have not answered one of your questions, please send an email to wanawebinar@fountainhouse.org. The recording will be made available next week on our YouTube channel. The link will be located in today's follow-up email. Please take a moment to fill out the short survey that will appear once you leave today's event. Thank you for joining today's webinar. Please be on the lookout for announcements regarding future webinars.